What's going on, good people? How did your practice go? Leave me a comment below. Let me know what specifically you need help with. Help me tailor these videos to your actual needs. That would be awesome. DM me, email, whatever. 3 things I left out of the last video that I want to share with you that will help you practice. So number 1, practice slow. Slower than you think you need to. Start off slow. The reason I say that is, think about it like this. You have 2 car mechanics, right? 2 different customers brought their cars to 2 different mechanics. One of them takes their time. The customer's a little mad because they get the car like 2-3 days late, but that mechanic made sure everything, every tool, every piece, every part of the car was in its proper place and fixed and ready to go, right? That customer might be pissed when they get the car, but when they get on the road, they're driving with confidence. They have no issues. They don't have to bring it back to any mechanic for a while, right? They're good. They can go 120 miles an hour. The thing is running great. The other customer gets their car back, 2 days earlier than they thought they were going to. And it seems fine when they pull it out of there and they're on, going 40 miles an hour down the road and they're having no problems. Cool. When they start to take it up to 80, they get on the freeway, whatever, there's that little clunking sound starts, or, it could not immediately happen, but down the road, like, it's just wear and tear because that part is loose, because that mechanic, didn't take their time to properly, slowly, methodically do what they needed to do. Same thing goes with your playing. If you are playing, cool, you might be able to kind of rush through something at the beginning, but if you want to actually be a skillful player and be able to keep up with other people who are moving around fast, and you want to make sure that your foundations are set, you want to practice everything slower than you think you need to. And now, I understand, I get impatient too. You might not be in it to perfectly master everything. Understandable. I'm telling you, if you do want to be able to play freely, even if you're not I don't want to go jam, I'm not trying to play bebop, I'm not trying to, cool. Even if you just want to interpret songs or transcribe or hear stuff, it's going to help you if you have a solid foundation. It's just going to take away the resistance between thought and music. And that's, I think, the goal. I think that should be the goal for everyone. So if that's your goal, slowing stuff down is really going to help you. And another way that I kind of keep myself accountable with that slowing down is using a metronome. So the one I use is called Pro Metronome. It's a free app. You can download it for your phone. Great user interface, but Google has Google Metronome. So if you just Google the word metronome, Google has one. Cool. You can find them anywhere. They go by beats per minute, BPM it says, and you want to start, as slow as your slowest part. It's the slowest piece of the scale that you can do. Sometimes you can play the first 7 notes or the first 5 notes fine, but those last 3 or whatever get you every time. Just start practicing those last 3 at a slow tempo, the slow as you can comfortably, properly do it, and then build that up to where you can do it the same speed for the whole thing, and then start doing that, and then you just notch it up a couple beats per minute each time, and then by the end of that, you're rocking, you're fluent. The second tip that I have for you is keep a practice log, and what that helps you do in connection with the last one is just keep you accountable. Here, I practice, this is how I would write it, A-C 60-80, right? And that means I practice major scales A through C, and I went from 60 beats per minute, I started there, and I went up to 80 beats per minute on each one of those. And then what this log enables me to do is, one, it takes it out of my head. I'm not sitting there trying to remember, what did I practice last time? I don't know. And then I don't practice as much and with as much confidence if I can't remember what I practiced. Or this is what it really helps, is that one scale. The C's easy, I can play that at 90, but that B, I'm at 72, right? So I'll write down, A through C, 60 to 80, but in parentheses, B only got to 72, or just B72, B-72. And that means when I come back the next day, what's the first thing I'm going to practice? It's not the one I'm most comfortable with. I don't need to practice that C scale again. What I need to do is get on that B scale and be working towards actually being able to play in every, being able to move in every sphere, being able to play. I don't want to be limited by, I got comfortable and I just wanted to play what felt good immediately. I want to know that I'm confident to move in any key I hear a song in, I can play it in. You know, I want to transcribe a song. I'm not fumbling around. I can hear it. And I'm like, oh, how did that song go? Oh, it's in B. Cool. I got it. So yeah, those two are the main like kind of big picture practice things, and then one specific thing that I didn't mention that I want to tell you about for fingering. So we mentioned last time these three long fingers, those are going to reach the black keys easiest, so we'll pretty much only use these on the black keys. There are no thumbs or these on the black keys. Those are just white key, basically. Right? These three middle ones, you can also use them for white keys, but when you got a scale that involves black keys, it's them going on it. This next thing I'm going to tell you is basically which one of these are you going to use when you're crossing over, because I got three of them. I could land on this finger, or this finger. I don't know which one to use. All right, here's a rule that can kind of help you think about it. So when I'm crossing under with my thumb, I always know it's going to be my thumb, right? That's landing on the next note, my thumb, I did clear. Over here, how you can remember is one mathematical mnemonic device is remember our finger numbering system, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? The scale is made up of 7 tones, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The octave is the one. We get back to the same thing. So 7 tones, right? And this is our third and our fourth finger. So if I already jumped over with my third finger, what do I need to do to get to 7? I need to jump over with my fourth finger. So basically, we're pretty much, I'll tell you right now, not using our index finger for most of these major and minor scales. We'll use it later on down the line, but for right now, we're basically only using these two when we jump over. And if you just jumped over with your fourth finger, you're just going to jump over with your third. If you just jumped over with your third, you're jumping over with your fourth. All right, cool. That's a mathematical way to think about it. You'll notice throughout this whole lesson I'm talking at once to the mathematical brain and to the kind of just human relational brain. So we want to get left and right brain involved in this thinking process, because music is mathematical and emotional at the same time, right? It's human and it's divine, frequencies all at once. So there's the mathematical way of thinking. Here's the human way of thinking. Stupid, simple, but could work for you. Ring finger, i.e. marriage. Middle finger, i.e. divorce. So if you just got married, what comes next in American relationships, at least often, sadly, is divorce. If you just got divorced, what comes next? Marriage, hopefully, if you want that. So yeah, if you just married, divorce next time, right? Marriage, divorce, marriage, divorce. All right, cool. 2 goofy ways to think about which finger you're going to jump over with. But of course, look at your chart, memorize your chart. But it's not really about memorization. It's about having these tools to think and to see mathematical patterns and to be able to create those therefore wherever. You don't have to memorize in every case. Like, here's how it works on that. When I start on that note, here you can, but you don't need to if you have some rules kind of available to you. So yes, those are the 3 practice things. That was a bit long, but they're really helpful, I think, for you. This lesson today is going to be a little bit longer than the last one, even probably like 30 to 35 minutes in addition to what I already said right now. But stick with it. Pause it if you need to. Come back to it. I promise you, having these kind of concepts in mind is really going to help you actually, like I said, be thinking about this consciously and not just be doing memorized patterns, right? So it's not just about, oh, that's a C and that's a B and that's no. These are mathematical relationships between frequencies, and they're also things that we can think about metaphorically, and those are the 2 meanings that I'm teaching through. Those are what I want you to hold on to so that you can be empowered when you approach this thing called music and not reduce it to any one interface, i.e. the keyboard, oh, that's how you play guitar. I just memorized this and I just play that because the tab told me to do it. No. The concepts and beyond music theory, just concepts, right? So basically the concept that I'm teaching you today is combining this last lesson, i.e. scales, and then the thing I'm teaching you today, which is chords, in order to get songs. If we can do that, we can do this, we can make a song. So how do we combine the 2? Well, we take some rule from the scale lesson and we use it to derive our chords from. So scales, as we said, 7 tones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least the major scale and minor scale we're talking about that we're building this theory around. When you number the scale like that, you can use that. We said, okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our fingers have numbers. The distances between notes have numbers. Blah blah blah. A lot of numbers, but this is the most important numbering system I'm talking about, because what it enables you to do, this do re mi fa sol la ti do, and numbering that enables you to communicate with every instrument that you could deal with, and with songs as ideas, and with chords as concepts. And that is really empowering knowledge. You as a piano player can talk to the bass player, the guitar player, the trumpet player, everyone, and they'll understand what you mean when you say, let's go to the 4. Let's go to the 4, let's go to the 5, let's go to the 7, let's go to, that'll make sense by the end of this lesson, I promise you. So, conceptually. So that's what we're going to talk about. Let's get into it. Cool. Alright, so while the numbering of our fingers is important and the numbering between steps is really important, as I said, this numbering of the scale is the most important thing we're going to talk about. We're going to go back down to below our 2 kings, the white key there, it's called a C, and just play our major scale, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. We're going to do that because it's all white keys and it's just really easy to see this example illustrated. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Cool. So that's our numbers. What is that going to help us do? It's going to help us play chords, as I said. What are chords? These frameworks that determine kind of the moods of songs. So we're talking about that today. And as I said before, this will help us be able to talk with all the other chordal and melodic instruments. So let's take a look at this again. When we go up there, basically how we can make chords, simply put, is skipping a step and playing the next one, skipping another step and playing the next one, and playing them at the same time, right? That's a real straightforward, simple chord. Really famous one, C major. You don't need to remember the name. That's not the point right now. What the point is that we used this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to make it. We could do the same if we started on 2, skipped 1, went to 4, went to 6. We could do the same if we started on 3, went to 5, went to 7. And we could do that in any other key. So this is our starting point, and we're going to do a whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. We could go 1, skip the 2, go to the 3, skip the 4, go to the 5, play that, and that's a chord. We can go to 2, skip the 3, go to the 4, skip the 5, go to the 6, major chord, 3, 5, 7, major chord, 4, 6, 1, major chord. Alright, so let's jump back to our white keys just because it's real easy to see. So basically what are chords? They're not defined by that exactly. You could have all different types of ways of phrasing them, but that's a really easy way to start making them. Abstractly speaking, metaphorically speaking, I would think of them in relation to our previous analogy. So if last time we talked about scales as these roads that go from point A to point B, chords, I would say, are like significant landmarks on the road, like areas, like environments marked off by different landmarks. So I'd say they're like saying, the section of the road between 4th Street and 7th Avenue, between Market Square up on the left and City Hall up on the right, that area, you might say, has a certain atmosphere, right? Kind of feels like this. That environment marked up by those landmarks, those points, has a mood to it. And definitely we could have multiple paths, right? Multiple roads, multiple scales leading through that same area. So if I'm playing this C scale, I could be playing a G major, a major chord starting here. On top of it, I could play a minor chord starting here. I could play a minor chord starting here. A minor scale, starting here. I could play a lot of different scales that go through this same path, right? This same area. So, as a whole, you might say it has a feel to it. This, right, 1, 3, 5 has a different feel, you could say, than the 2, 4, 6, right? It has a certain vibe to it. I would say another way to think about this, let's start developing these a little further, start expanding them out, is if you're approaching an area from uptown, maybe you're someone with a lot of money coming from the suburbs up north, and you're coming into downtown, right? That downtown feels, maybe you could say, different than someone who's approaching it from, you know, the slums down there, doesn't have enough money. They see the shopping windows and they're like, this is just taunting me, I can't buy anything. The rich see it and it's a playground, whatever. So that is to say, this same area, depending on how you approach it, might have a different feel, depending on where you're coming from, east, west, north, south, etc. If you're in a bike, a chopper, you know what I mean, a car, walk on foot, it's all going to feel differently. So let's think about what's a mathematical way to do that, or to look at that. One way to think about that is like, here's my 1, I play 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I get back up to another 1, right? I could just take out this 1 and put it on top and play that one up there, right? And that has a different feel to it. Okay, so that's called chord inversions. You don't have to memorize that, but I want to put that into your head. A couple of little terms here. Chord inversions are when we take a note. Now I'll take my 3, right, 1, 2, 3, and I'll put it up here. If this is my next 1, then 1, 2, 3, and I'll play those together. That's another inversion of the chord, right? I'm flipping it on its head, taking what was on the bottom and putting it on the top. Alright, so we can do that same thing with our 2, 4, 6, right? Take our 2, put it up here, in between the 2 kings. Another one, take our 4, put it up here. Alright, and we'll keep coming back to this, but, right, this is called our 1 chord. This is called our 2 chord, because it starts on the 2. This would be then our 3 chord, our 4 chord, our 5 chord, 6 chord, 7 chord, and back to our 1 chord. And I could play the 1 chord like this, or I could play it, you know, take my G up here, this top note, and I'll put it down here, my 5 rather, or I'll put my 3 back down here, right? I could play it all and it's still a C chord. And what we call these is a triad. So a triad just means it's made up of 3 notes, all right? This is just another term I want to throw at you, and just have it in the back of your mind. It's not the point today, is not memorizing these terms. The point is today is kind of seeing conceptually what's going on. So we'll see more about how to apply those inversions later. Why I want you to focus not on like, oh, that's a G and that's an E and that's a C right now especially, is that I don't think those ultimately say anything. Like, I think they're just ways that we use to talk about what we're doing. So they're cool, they're helpful, but they are not it. And I think a lot of music education starts to approach this stuff called notes, right? The names of notes, and say that is a this in very kind of like just applying this language of music theory sort of uncritically to the task of making music and thinking about music, and just kind of passing on. This is what I was taught to memorize, so you memorize this now too. I don't think that really, like what we call an A, for instance, back before 1940, I think, was at 432 hertz, right? So it was at a certain frequency, a certain whatever per second. And then it changed at 1940, I think, to 440 hertz, right? You don't have to remember all this, but the point is, it's not a stable thing called A. You can call it a do, a re, a mi, you can call it a C, D, E, you can call it a lot of different things, but the point is, what it is a mathematical relationship between frequencies. It's not even that this equals the same exact frequency every time. It's that this, generally speaking, if your stuff is in tune, has the same mathematical relationship, ratio to this, right? Whatever you're tuned to and whatever you're calling them, right? There's still a stable mathematical ratio between those. That's what we're looking at right now. So let's start thinking of chords in terms of ratios between different notes. Okay, so the names are secondary, we'll get to those, but I don't want to confuse those with what the notes are designating, namely these frequencies, and with what chords are, which is these relationship between the frequencies. Cool. All right, I've drummed on that plenty. So let's say, I want to start like getting into more of this mathematical question of frequency and vibration with you, but before we start doing that, I want to throw out another sort of metaphoric human approach to this, to thinking about this, and I hope this little story will kind of help you humanize this issue, that humanize this question of frequencies and vibrations. So we have, right, let's pretend this is a group of 3 friends, right, who like to hang out with each other. Now, it's precisely because they are not the exact same frequency that they like to hang out with each other, right? If they were the same person, right, it wouldn't be interesting. It would just be one and the exact same, doing the same. It would be octaves, right? Or it would be, here's a perfect, 1 second, my keyboard has been wigging out, so it'll change tune all of a sudden, right? A C won't be a C, it'll start changing tune. So that kind of makes my point. I'm a little embarrassed about it, but also, honestly, it's perfect illustration of a C is not just a C, right? A C is a way of thinking about it. Anyways, so back to our three friends, right? So they harmonize with each other because of their differences. Let's look at that a little more closely. Say, you know, our first friend is a very grounded person. She's quiet, but she's emotionally grounded and grounding for the group, right? She's that witty type. She doesn't talk much, but when she does, she's funny. She laughs at other people's jokes. She reminds them who they are, right? She is there when they need emotional support, right? And then let's say we got another one who's kind of our emotional swinger. You never know what she's gonna feel, but she always keeps it interesting, right? Each day she comes with something new. The wild card. She keeps everyone on her toes, right? Gives us something to talk about for sure. Let's say the third one is this outgoing, assertive type, right? She kind of naturally falls on top. She makes sure everyone's good. She keeps them all getting what they want as individuals, as a group. She's speaking up. She's the public face of the group in most interactions, right? Now, as I said, you wouldn't say they're all in the same vibration, right? As people, they're definitely not, but because their differences work with each other or harmonize, that's why they get along and hang out together and they work together, right? Here's our grounded one, our emotional one, and our alpha dog, right? So let's say our middle friend, right, is kind of like, she's up one day, she's down the next, right? She moves around, but her friends they complement, right? They stabilize her. So whichever version of herself she's feeling like that day, they're there for her. They're going to stabilize her. All right. So, and let's think about it this way. Our alpha dogs, right, naturally sort of just falls on top. But in certain instances, right, let's say they're at a bar and the quiet, grounded one, grounding one, she clearly likes this guy or this girl across the way, and she's naturally quiet, so she doesn't have, and her friends, they're pushing her to the forefront, right? They're like, you need to go talk. They're pushing her out there into the top spot, right? Her needs are becoming the purpose of this group interaction, right? That's like our inversion. So they're a stable trio together, but sometimes the needs of one or the presence of one will go to the top of the pile, right? And you can hear my piano kind of wiggling there, right? Sometimes maybe the emotional needs of the emotional one comes in all chipper that day, or she comes in sad, right? And that's what they need to address as a group, right? That's who's going to be on top. That's who's getting pushed to the forefront of their collective consciousness. All right, cool. So we've got our inversions, right? They're still a stable trio, however we flip them. Whoever's on top, right? They're a stable trio, right? The third one is she's either way, but they're still stable. Okay, cool. So let's say now there's another person. They kind of just start to introduce. They meet a new girl and she might be cool, and they introduce her into the group. But this new girl really kind of is in competition with this alpha dog, right? She sees her as competition. She wants to petty one up every time. She likes to be on top, and she sees her as on top. Now let's stick a note right on top of here. She keeps trying to do this, and let's see how that feels. Whoa. That doesn't work out, right? There's a very tense group dynamic there, right? So they don't keep her in the friend group for long. All right, she's out. Let's say now they meet an artist, right? A philosopher who's thinking about the big picture, a super airy type, likes to be up in the clouds. She's up there, she's above, so to speak, in terms of, but it's so far away from our alpha dog that it's not in competition. It's more like pie in the sky. She likes to just think about the big picture. So let's go to our 1, 3, 5, and then our 7, right? So that, her being up there, not in direct competition with this alpha dog, right? But the spacing between them makes this work, makes the group feel open, airy, light, They're existing in the full spectrum of human possibilities, right? So again, 1, 3, 5, 7, right? And they work together pretty well, okay? Now, let's look at it. If we go back to our inversions and we're taking our 1 and we're putting it up top, it still kind of works, right? So right here we put 1 right above, right? They're right next to each other, 1 space away, but it didn't work. Right here, take the inversion, and now these are right next to each other, but they work. and they work because of the whole context. So it's not just purely about the spacing between individual notes, it's about the whole context of the group as a group, right? So we could say metaphorically, right, she's in her airiness, right, she might even complement this grounded one, and when they need to push her, she, the grounded one feels even more closely supported because she got this other friend who's so different than her, kind of like still being behind her, right? So that closeness could turn into tension if it was just them two alone, but in the context of the whole group, it sounds right, it works, cool. Alright, so let's come down from the analogy briefly and just point out what is happening mathematically here. These vibrations are working, right, because we see about these spaces in between them. Let's start counting the spaces in between them now. Not what degree is it on the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but how many objective, half notes as we call them, or how many spaces, chromatic steps are they in between. So chromatic steps, half notes, single space, whatever you want to call it, right? We'll call it half notes. How many half notes are there in between them? So to get from 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm sorry, yes, 1, we start at 1, but then we go 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, 4 space to get to our 3, our emotional friend. Then we go 1 space, 2 space, 3 spaces to get to our alpha dog. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So 4, 3, 4. That's the spacing for this big happy chord, right? Now let's just stick to the triads. Let's forget about the airy friend. This is the chord group, right? Just keep it simple. So 4, 3. That would be a major triad, right? If I start anywhere on this, if I just go right here and I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go up 1, 2, 3, that's boom. We got a major triad. Okay. So I can move that around anywhere. And if I wanted to, say, add in our airy friend again, right? 4, 3, 4. Start anywhere. Start right here. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can start moving these around, right? And I've practiced all these, so I'll just go. And I'm playing just the same thing with both hands here. Right, and that's just major chords moving around. Major 7 they're called. So I would say if you want to start applying something, now would be a good time to stop the video and just start in on practicing that 4, 3, 4 distance, right, between different stuff. And you could do it not only counting like that, but also associating with the major scale. So in other words, a whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Right, like we learned last time. You can start here, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So 1, skip 2, 3, skip 4, 5, skip 6, 7, right? And then you can count to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, 4, 3, 4. So that's a good spot to stop if you want to just start applying directly. You can watch to the end and we'll talk about everything, but remember that's a great exercise. Just start building your major 7 chords is what they're called. So 4, 3, 4 spacings is what they are. In those terminologies of just half steps, 1, 3, 5, 7s is what they are in terms of scale steps. Okay. And the 1, 3, 5, 7 is the most important thing to learn and that's if you've already learned your scales, you'll have no issues doing that. If you want to go back and kind of solidify your scales, it'll be real easy to start making 1, 3, 5, 7 chords with those. Cool. Okay, so let's go back to our people. Let's go back to our ladies here, and look at this using that notion of half steps right now. So we've got our 4, 3, right? That's the spacing in between these. And when our emotionally turbulent friend is happy, right? She might be, you could say, closer to the assertive friend, right? She's more, assertive herself. She's more out there. She's enjoying whatever the assertive friend is doing and how she's vibing. And maybe she doesn't feel like she needs the emotional support of the friend, so she's 4 spaces away from her, but she's 3, right? She's a little closer to the alpha dog when she's happy. When she's down, right? Let's take her down one. She's feeling not so bueno that day. That's a little more sad of a chord, right? She might need the support, so she's a little closer. She's 1, 2, 3 spaces away from our grounding friend, and 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away from the alpha dog, right? Maybe the alpha dog's just, I don't know, she's, you know, not as patient with her emotional needs and victimization, etc. But she's still there for her. She's gonna stand up for her. She's gonna make sure she feels pulled up, right, if she needs it. And even if she's still feeling down, she's gonna go to bat for her in the world. She's gonna make sure, you know, someone will pay if they've been wronging her, right? She's still there for her. But at this point, our emotional friend is, maybe we could say, closer to our grounder, right? Okay, so that's a 3/4 chord. We could call it that, right? We could also call it a minor chord, but the spaces between it is mathematically 3 spaces and then 4 spaces. All right, cool. So let's keep developing this a little bit. I want you to have these numbers in mind, mainly to check your work. I'd say if you can, use the scalar approach. Use the, like, counting the scales. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? That's our whole, half, whole, half. If you wanted to play a minor scale, it's whole, half, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, half, whole. That'll get you those minor chords as well. I'd say stick to the majors for right now. We'll see how we can build minor chords out of the major chords and how they're all kind of related as we go. But I would say stick to the majors, and I would say if you already have those, good, do your minors, but let's stick to the majors for now. And then I would say, instead of just practicing what we call chromatically, just going straight up, that's easy and that's good, and do that eventually. But I think what that also lets you do is you just move each one. I'm just going to move each one up 1, move each one up 1, right? And I'm just going to move each one up 1. And that's cool, but I kind of want you to see that scale relationship, and then secondarily to count the spaces between things, and then third, maybe just pay attention to, like, oh, I only need to move up 1 on each finger to get to that next one. Cool. But the primary thing is getting those scales dialed in. So what do we call these, like, 3 or 4/3 relations, or 3/4, right? Those are basically intervals, and we have specific terms for each one. But first and foremost, just see that numerical relationship between them, right? And you'll see why we call them all these different names. We've known this is an interval, the space between notes, of a half step. This is an interval of a whole step, right? This is an interval of what we call a minor third, or a sad third, right? A major third, a fourth. We'll learn all these. You don't have to memorize them, but just know that those spaces between notes are called intervals, and they're what make up chords. Alright, cool. So let's get back to the analogy. Let's get our artistic friend in the mix. So maybe, you know, some days she's feeling good and airy. Maybe some days she's been watching too much news, right? And now our 7th friend, now she's kind of down, right? She's been, like, just feeling helpless by the state of the world, you know. And our emotional one is still feeling happy, right? Now just them two on their own, that could be kind of tense, right? But in the context of the whole group, I don't know, that could feel like a party, right? That could be it's like that blues kind of chord, right? So context, right, changes the feel of the whole group, right? So one of these notes could change, and it could change the whole group, but it could stabilize certain dissonances, right? Certain things that might be on their own dissonant, but in this big context, they're stabilized. Okay. All right. So cool. Yeah, she's feeling down, but with the support of her friend, she dances it out. She's good. You know, she gets it out of her system. That's how she deals with her feelings, right? When she's in her feelings. And now the next day she's back, right? She's back up. But let's say our emotional friend is now, I don't know, she's hungover, or she's just dealing with, right, from last night's dancing. Oof. Okay, we got some tension in the group, right? She's annoyed because this philosopher everyone is coming downstairs, you know, making her, juicing her berries, cucumbers, and pineapples, singing, you know, chilling, whatever. And now her emotional friend's not having it. She is bugging her with her hangover, whatever. Maybe this, you could say, that's real tension. Even for the whole group, it's kind of tension. We might want to use this kind of tension in the song. It might be kind of interesting. But what that kind of does is, I would say, that pushes our airy friend is now, she's down too, right? Now she's like, man, what the fuck? I was happy. Like, what are you tripping about? Sorry, this is goofy, but I think hopefully it's helping you think about this stuff. And let's say, they're all vibing on this kind of down thing, but, they're still stable as a friend group, and with the support of their two more stable friends, right, they help kind of get everyone back to feeling good. They help reconcile them, okay? So, yes, like I said, it's kind of goofy. Forgive me using stereotype females to explain this. I know this could probably equally work for guys. Maybe our emotional understanding and expressions are kind of delayed or even buried to make for direct, interesting theater. Maybe I'm just being lazy. I know I just basically created a episode of Sex and the City to explain chords, and I hope you can really forgive me for that, please. But more importantly, I hope that gives you a way of understanding what they are, namely relationships. Yes, complicated ones, changeable ones, but they're understandable. They follow a sort of logic, and they create certain emotional atmospheres or vibes, right? Because of the distances and spacings and relationships between these entities, these notes. Cool. All right, so these mathematical ratios, back to them, right? 4, 3, 4, or 3, 4, 3. There's my keyboard wigging out again. Or 3, 4, 4, or 4, 3, 3. Right? They all have different feels because of the spacings. Cool. You don't have to force memorize these. I think as you start to play those different spacings, and like I said, start with the scales, because it's the major scale is simple: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 1, 3. Start with those, and then we'll start altering the thirds and the sevenths and start flipping stuff around. But for right now, if you want something to practice, do that in every scale that you have learned the scale. If you haven't learned the scale, go back and do the scale first and then do this, and practice it with both hands, like I always emphasize, so you can really play them at the same time. And you'll start to kind of intuit how each of these types of chord feel, right? You'll feel that, and you'll know that wants to go somewhere, right? And you'll start to learn, how all these things work. But if you get these under your fingers, these distances, these relationships, right? That was all just major chords. That was all 4, 3, 4s, or 1, 3, 5, 7s, right? You can make some really cool, pretty things. You can kind of hear, that if you're listening to something else, you might be able to start hearing, that sounds like a major chord. It sounds like a major 7 chord, right? Start to recognize that. And then you'll start to recognize that sounds like the 1 chord, right? We're grooving on this stable space. Or that sounds like the 4 chord. Or that sounds like the 2 chord. Or that sounds like the 5 chord. Or that sounds like the 6 chord. There's my keyboard again. Alright, so that's how we build the 1 chord, right? I focused on the major 1 chord today, and we learned how to use spaces between the notes to see that, and we learned what an interval is. We learned what a triad is, which is just a simple version of these chords, just a 1, 3, 5, a 2, 4, 6, right? You can start doing that up and down the scale. You can start messing with inversions if you really want to start mastering these chords. Start taking the 1, putting it on top. Start doing that with any chord. So here's my 4. I'm going to take the 1 and put it on top. Or I'm going to take this one, the 1, of my 4. I'm going to take my 4 and put it on top. Or I'm going to take my 1 and put it on the bottom here. Right, so I go from here. And then if I want to just keep my hand in that same position, that's a 4 chord, but I've put the 1 on the bottom. Right? And then that has, you could look at that intervallically and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you could call that a 5/4 if you wanted to start thinking like that. I would stray from that, like I said, and start focusing on the scalar relation and noticing that, that's an inversion of our 4 chord. Okay. Anyways, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. You don't have to memorize all of this. I wanted to give you a real good sense of the field that we're going to be working in. But we'll do more on inversions later. We'll do more on how to learn about these relationships between 4 chords, say, and then this counting of the notes between the spaces. That's mostly a way to check yourself and a way to build chords if you want to kind of just do it mechanically, right? If you're like, I don't really want to play with anyone, I'm just a producer and I just want to like get these relationships, and how they feel, and then start immediately making stuff. I don't care if it's a D flat, major scale, whatever. I just want to. You can do that too. So I would say that's going to hamper your progress a little bit if you don't focus on the scale kind of way of thinking, because that to me is the way that we're going to communicate with other musicians and the way that we're going to understand songs. We're going to break down, like when we hear a song, it often is made up of like, oh, there's the 1 chord, okay, then it's going to the 4, then it goes to the 5, then it goes back to the 1, right? That's the common blues kind of progression. And I can start to hear that. I don't know what key it's in, but I know that that's the feel of a 1 chord. That's the feel of a 4 chord, right? You can start to get there, believe it or not, quicker than you think you can, where you're just hearing something and you don't know what scale it is, but you hear the relationships, and then you can go to your keyboard and find, okay, what's the 1? If I just find that starting note, then I could tell what the rest of the song is, right? If I know that that's my 1 chord, then I already know where my 4 chord is. I don't have to plunk around for it. I know because I practice, right? And I know where my 5 is next. And that's a whole lot of rock and roll. Right? Cool. So that gets really, complicated. We can take it all these directions, but it's really simple to start off with, right? And knowing that this is a C, E, G, or a D, F, A, that will develop that as we go. But yes, I continue to emphasize this question of distances between things and relationships as being the true substance of the matter. All right, so practice as many chords and scales as you want to in this way. I would say before you even see the next video, I would say at least do 2, because I want you to have seen how this applies to more than just my example. I want you to take this and transport it, start at another note, pick one of your choosing, and apply this logic, and you'll start to get it, you'll start to see it. So happy practicing. You are one step closer now to jamming with people, to playing songs, to writing your own songs. I've given you the main ingredients, right? Now we're going to add the spices, the seasoning, this little stuff, but these are the 2 main, like, this is what we need to make whatever we're making, right? Cool. All right. Happy practicing. Thanks for watching. Peace.